We're talking about a government that works for people, health care and prescription drugs and collective bargaining, the list goes on and on. And those issues are bigger than any one of us, certainly bigger than me. And so, I think it's about telling people that, everything that you wanted is still within sight. We still can accomplish that. We still can get the government we want. It's just with a different messenger.
That was Senate candidate Troy Jackson. Democrats in Maine have just confirmed him to replace Graham Platner after his campaign ended in scandal. Well, now Jackson has just 3 months to convince Mainers he should represent them in Washington over incumbent Republican Senator Susan Collins, who's been in office for almost 3 decades. Let's bring in Samir Kapadia and Chuck Rocha. Samir is the managing principal and head of trade at the Vogel Group, and Chuck is a CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist. Gentlemen, good Monday morning to you both. Chuck, let's start with you. We've got Democrats in Maine switching out a candidate with months to go before the big-time election. Sounds like a story we've heard before. Anyone remember Vice President Harris's presidential ambitions? So should Democrats be concerned in Maine?
Well, we're always going to be concerned in Maine because Susan Collins has always been so hard to beat. And to set the groundwork for everybody here, there's no way for Democrats to take back the U.S. Senate if we can't flip Maine. Maine is one of the few states where you have a Republican senator in a state that Democrats carried in the last presidential election by 7 points. But she has always been, the incumbent Republican senator, Susan Collins, a pain in our backside because no matter how much money we spent there, she's had a foothold. So now we have this new nominee. We've gotten rid of Graham Platner. We have a former state senator, Troy Jackson, a logger from upstate Maine. I think that because Maine is so small and because it only has 2 congressional districts, 1 major city, it's not that hard to get the message out. And at this point in time, with an unpopular president, Troy Jackson has a real chance to actually flip this seat for the Democrats.
And Samir, the GOP is outspending Democrats in Maine, but why isn't, considering how established Senator Susan Collins has been for so long, as Chuck just mentioned, why isn't she comfortably ahead?
Well, look, these are always moving targets. We just need to be frank about the current situation with both parties. Remember, I think it's fair to say that Republicans and Democrats lack a certain kind of brand clarity to the national electorate. Now, granted, this is a state race, but it's very fast becoming a national race in terms of attention. Now, remember, Collins is very well respected. She's been in office for a long time. She's constantly rated as one of the most bipartisan members of the United States Senate. She's the first woman chairwoman of the Senate Appropriations Committee. Look, she's an incumbent with an impeccable track record, and she understands the state well. I don't think this is a problem around Republicans or a problem around Democrats. It's going to be about identifying with where does the country need to go in the future. And frankly, both parties have not clarified that.
Senator Bernie Sanders spoke about the divide among Democrats on Face the Nation just yesterday. I want to play a clip of that.
Whether it's Michigan, Minnesota, Vermont, or any place else in this country. The point I'm trying to make, Margaret, and the polling indicates this, the people are sick and tired of the status quo.
Yes.
We are the richest country in the history of the world. We should have the highest standard of living for all of our people, not massive income and wealth inequality.
And Chuck, on that point, especially when you look at the primary in Michigan, are Democratic progressive policies perhaps too much for the moderate wing of the base? Are we seeing evidence of that?
Well, you have to win a primary before you can win a general. And just like in the Republican primary, you have a small subset of the electorate that actually shows up to pick our nominees. And when you're talking about a small subset, like you saw and me and you have talked about in the New York primaries, in the congressional races that were flipped for the DSA, you have a much smaller group of folks. So that's why you're going to see something really unique in Michigan. Who shows up will make all the difference in the world. And I don't think they see themselves as left wing, right wing, or moderate. I think Bernie Sanders was owned to something there when he said there's a lot of anxiety in the American electorate right now, and you're going to see that in the primary in Michigan because I think a lot of new people are going to show up because they're just not happy.
And Samir, Senator Sanders also called out the Republican establishment. To Chuck's point, are Republicans communicating that they understand the economic concerns of most citizens, or might they be out of touch?
I don't think they're out of touch at all. I mean, let's be very frank. Gary Peters was a huge China hawk in the Senate, always looked at industrial policy and how that links with national security. The perfect fit for that vacancy is Rogers, chairman of House Intelligence Committee, an Army veteran, FBI ties. Look, the guy understands through and through what it means to look at manufacturing, national security, China, and he's got a very, very impressive record in understanding those issues. I don't think this is about Democrats or Republicans. This is about what does the Senate need to fill a vacancy. And if you're going to look at from apples to apples, Gary Peters, huge China hawk. Can I say the same thing about Stevens or others? Perhaps, but I know Rogers is. That's where the product to market fit exists.
I want to ask you both about the Iran war. We've got brand new CBS News polling, which finds 63% of Americans feel the war is either going somewhat badly for the U.S. or very badly. Also, 67% want the war to end now. Listen to what Louisiana Republican Senator John Kennedy said on Face the Nation yesterday about this.
The president likes the daily attacks. He believes that sometimes you have to kill a few chickens to scare the monkeys. That's not. I don't think that's going to work with the Iranian leadership.
Samir, I'm not familiar with most of these sayings, but what do you make of that?
Look, clearly this geopolitical choke point in the Strait of Hormuz has become not just an economic one and not just a regional security one. It's become an inflation conversation. I think that for the president and for the White House, this challenge in the Strait of Hormuz and Iran writ large is a must-win. It's almost too big to fail, right? And so as long as we continue to put pressure on that system and bring back a win for the United States and for the world, that's where the focus is. Clearly, Iran has not played ball on a lot of our requests. It's continued sort of shifting and a carousel of chaos when it comes to the way that they manage diplomacy. Can we really count on that in the long term? Probably not. And I think the international community has kind of left us hanging in the dust here. Why isn't NATO more involved? Why isn't India more involved or China more involved in this circumstance? The United States is going at this alone. And you know what? They're doing it for the better of America and for the world. We got to give them credit for that.
Chuck, I'll give you the final thought on this.
The American people right now, I'm working on races from California to New York, care about two things. They want to know why things cost so much and why can I make more money? And as we're running these races, the Republicans who are running for Congress right now are pulling a huge anchor, and that's what the CBS poll shows. And the anchor is the war and the price of gas. No matter what happens, no matter who, quote unquote, wins the war or loses the war, every time somebody has to pay more than $4 a gallon in gas, the Democrats are going to pick up 2 more congressional seats. It's just how campaigns are working. That's why they're desperate to get this war over with, and we're going to see who is right come November.
All right, Samir Kapadia and Chuck Rocha, great to chat with you both on this Monday. Thanks for your time.